Once, there was a lady named Bangi who never liked to be the center of attention. At 25 years old, she worked as a manager at a travel company in Kampala for 3 years. Her small, cozy apartment was just a short walk from her job. Every day was the same. She woke up, went to work, returned home, sometimes met friends, and spent weekends visiting her parents in Jinja. Some people thought her life was boring, but Bangi liked it that way. She didn't enjoy big crowds and stayed away from wild parties or social events. Bangi preferred her quiet life. Bangi's sister, Kanseem, was completely different. Ever since they were little, Kanseem was always in the spotlight. While Bangi stayed at the back during school events, Kanseem was always in the front, shining in every play. When Bangi quietly did her homework, Kanseem was busy running for class president and winning. Their mom would say, "Kanseem, you were amazing in the play." Then look at Bangi with disappointment and say, "Bangi, why don't you join in next time? It would be good for you like your sister." Bangi would just shrug and go to her room, knowing her family wouldn't understand that she was happy being herself. The comparisons between them never stopped. Bangi felt like her achievements were always compared to Kanseem's successes. When they reached university, Kanseem took things even further. While she was studying to become a teacher, she also started modeling. By their second year, Kanseem was walking on runways and appearing in magazines. After she graduated, Kanseem didn't even try to teach, because her modeling career was already taking off. Then she met a guy named Lubowa at one of her fashion shows. He had a rich family, a fancy car, and everything else that seemed perfect. Suddenly, family dinners became all about Kanseem and Lubowa. "You won't believe what Lubowa got me," was her new favorite line. One Sunday, it was a diamond necklace. The next, it was a new phone. Then, it was a designer handbag that cost more than Bangi's rent. "Oh, and his family has this amazing holiday home in Entebbe," she would say while their parents listened closely. "They're taking me there next weekend. His mom has a lot of money, you know." Bangi would sit through these talks, pushing Matuk around her plate and trying to blend in. Last week, she got a big promotion at work. She became a senior manager and received a nice raise. She tried to share the news once, but her family only wanted to hear about Kanseem's achievements. One Saturday, Bangi walked to her parents' house in Jinja. The morning air was fresh, and she heard excited sounds coming from inside. Before she could unlock the door, Kanseem burst out, her face bright with excitement. She showed Bangi a huge diamond ring that sparkled in the light. "He proposed," she shouted, spinning around. "Lubowa wants to marry me." Their parents came out of the kitchen smiling. Mama was wiping her eyes with a tissue, and Papa looked so proud. "We're having the engagement party right here," Kanseem said quickly. "Lubowa's parents and all their relatives are coming, and it's going to be perfect." "Congratulations," Bangi said, feeling happy for her sister. "That's great news," but Kanseem was already busy planning.
"We need to make lists."
"The venue is here, but we have to figure out the guest list. It should be impressive." Mama jumped in. "What about Uncle Juma? He has a successful law firm." "Yes, that's perfect," Kanseem agreed. "And cousin Rita, she's a heart doctor in Gulu City. Oh, and Professor Aziz, Papa's brother, who is the head of the chemistry department." They gathered around the table, writing names down. Bangi stood by the door, feeling like she didn't belong. "What about Aunt Akola?" Papa asked. Kanseem made a face. "The one who works at the supermarket? No way. We can't let Lubowa's family meet people like that. This should be for successful people only." They continued their list, leaving out anyone who they thought wasn't successful enough. Factory workers, teachers, and retail workers were all crossed off without a second thought. Bangi couldn't hold back. Maybe it was silly, or maybe she just wanted to see what would happen. She let out a small laugh and said, "Well, I guess I shouldn't expect an invitation then. Being a travel company manager won't impress anyone." The room went silent. Kanseem looked up, annoyed. "Well," she said slowly, "I guess you have to come. Lubowa knows I have a sister, and it would be weird if you weren't there." She went back to her list, adding, "It would be awkward to explain why you're not coming." Bangi felt hurt, not just by Kanseem's words, but also by how their parents agreed with her. It felt wrong that they thought it was okay for Bangi to be invited only to avoid awkwardness. The date was set, 4 weeks until the engagement party. Bangi decided to skip her usual weekend visits to her parents during that time. Whenever she called, she heard Mama arguing with caterers and Kanseem, directing everything like a music conductor. 3 weeks later, Bangi's phone lit up with Kanseem's name. It was the first time Kanseem had called since they discussed the guest list. "Hello," Bangi said, wondering what Kanseem would criticize this time. "I finally got my dress," Kanseem said excitedly. It cost 8 million shillings, and Luboa's mum went with me to pick it out. She said I look like a princess. Bangi made a sound that didn't mean much, something between an O and a listen. Kansim switched to her bossy tone. You need to find something nice to wear. And I mean nice, not your usual thrift shop style. My clothes are fine, Bangi began. No, they're not, Kansim interrupted. You look like a scarecrow. I can't have you embarrassing me at my engagement party. Get something nice, and please do something with your hair for once. Before Bangi could respond, the call ended. She stared at her phone, feeling hurt and angry, but a small voice inside her wondered if Kansima was right. When was the last time Bangi dressed up for anything? The next day, Bangi took a half day off work to go shopping. She looked in several stores before finding the perfect dress, a deep ruby red dress that fell just below her knees. The color made her eyes stand out, and the cut gave her curves she didn't know she had. The saleswoman helped her find matching shoes, and for the first time in years, Bangi felt pretty when she looked in the mirror. Finally, the day of the engagement party arrived. Bangi took extra time to get ready, even spending money to have her hair and makeup done at a salon. The stylist worked magic, turning Bangi's afro into classy box braids that framed her face. When she arrived at her parents' house, it looked beautiful. Fairy lights twinkled in the trees, and fancy cars filled the yard. Inside, the house was crowded with people in designer clothes, all chatting and laughing to the sound of soft Ugandan music. Bangi scanned the crowd for familiar faces. Most guests were from Luboa's side. She could tell by their confident looks and expensive watches. Of her family, she only spotted Uncle Juma, who had recently expanded his law firm, and her cousins Sosie and Judith, the doctor and the professor. They were standing near the chocolate fountain looking bored. Then Kansim made her entrance. She walked down the stairs in a dress that probably cost more than Bangi's car, flowing white silk and delicate lace. But when Kansim spotted Bangi, her smile vanished. She marched over, her heels clicking on the floor. Seriously, she hissed, looking Bangi up and down. That's what you chose to wear? You look like you're going to a mall, not an engagement party. Bangi looked down at her ruby dress, which she had felt so good in just moments ago. Before she could defend her choice, she heard a strong voice behind them. There's my beautiful fiancé! Luboa appeared with his parents, both looking like they stepped out of a magazine. Kansiam changed instantly, her face lighting up as she wrapped her arms around Luboa. Darling, she said sweetly, I want you to meet someone very special. She turned to Bangi, and Bangi was surprised when Kansima said, This is my dear sister Bangi. We're so close, right, sweetie? Bangi had to stop herself from checking if there was another Bangi behind her. Luboa's parents smiled warmly, and his mother stepped forward to take Bangi's hands. We've heard so much about you, she said kindly. Though Bangi doubted that, Bangi managed to say something polite while noticing Kansim glaring at her. The unfairness of it all made Bangi want to scream, but she just smiled and nodded through their small talk. As the evening went on, the noise and crowd started to overwhelm Bangi. The constant chatter, the clinking of glasses, and the forced laughter at stories that weren't funny. It was all too much. She had done her part, shown up, and now all she wanted was the comfort of her quiet apartment. Bangi made her way to the drink table, picking pomegranate juice instead of champagne, she thought. Just a quick goodbye to Kansim, and then she could leave. The juice felt cool in Bangi's hand as she navigated through the crowd toward Kansim, who was chatting with her future in-laws. She was almost there when someone bumped into her from behind. Bangi stumbled forward, and everything slowed down. The juice flew from her glass like a red comet, splashing all over Kansim's beautiful white dress. The room went silent. The red stains spread like a flower blooming, and Bangi watched as Kansim's face changed from shock to anger. I'm so sorry, Bangi stammered, reaching for a napkin. It was an accident. The slap came suddenly, echoing in the quiet room. Bangi's cheek burned as she stared at Kansim, who was shaking with rage, tears ruining her perfect makeup. You clumsy cow! Kansim screamed, pointing at her ruined dress. Get out! Get out of this house right now! Bangi looked to her parents, hoping they would help. Say something. Anything. Mama glanced at her, but her face was cold. Leave now, she said softly, trembling. You've ruined everything. Papa wouldn't look at Bangi. He stared at his shoes like they were the most interesting thing ever. The room was silent, broken only by Kansim's heavy breathing and the murmurs of the guests. Bangi grabbed her purse with shaking hands and walked toward the door. Each step felt heavy, every gaze on her like a spotlight. She heard Luboa's mother say something with concern, but Bangi couldn't hear it over the pounding in her ears. The drive home was a blur. She didn't remember stopping at lights or turning corners. Somehow Bangi got back to her apartment, fumbled with her keys and went inside. Only then, in her safe space, did she break down. She slid down against the door and let the tears flow. They weren't pretty tears. They were loud sobs that shook her entire body, the kind that left her feeling empty afterward. Bangi cried for the shame, for the betrayal, for 25 years of feeling like the family disappointment. The next morning, Bangi woke up with puffy eyes and a headache. When her phone rang with Kansim's name, a little hope sparked in her heart. Maybe Kansimi had calmed down. Maybe she was calling to apologize for slapping her in front of everyone. Bangi should have known better. "You stupid, worthless," Kansim began, a furious rant that would make anyone blush. Bangi held the phone away from her ear as Kansim unleashed a flood of bad words that would have cost her job if anyone had heard. When Kansim finally stopped, she shouted, "That dress cost 8 million shillings. You clumsy idiot, and you're going to pay for it. Plus 8 million shillings for emotional damages. Do you know how humiliated I felt?" Bangi was shocked by Kansim's nerve. "You want me to pay you 8 million shillings for emotional damages after you slapped me? You ruined my engagement party," Kansim yelled. "I'll pay for the dress," Bangi said, trying to stay calm. "That seems fair since it was an accident, but I won't pay for anything else. Plus 8 million shillings. "No," Bangi replied, surprising herself with how strong her voice sounded. "You know what? After what you just said to me, after you slapped me in public, I'm not paying for anything." Before Bangi could hang up, her phone rang again. This time, it was Mama's number. Bangi thought about letting it go to voicemail, but she knew Mama would keep calling. "Hello?" Bangi answered, feeling tired already. "Bangi," Mama said sharply, just like when Bangi disappointed her as a child. "You need to pay your sister for the dress and the emotional damage you caused. You ruined her engagement party." Bangi pressed her fingers against her forehead, feeling a headache coming. "Mama, it was an accident. Someone bumped into me, and in case you forgot, she slapped me in front of everyone." "Well, what did you expect? You ruined her 8 million shillings dress. You embarrassed her in front of Lubowa's family. Do you know how humiliating that was for all of us?" Bangi felt something snap inside. After 25 years of holding in her feelings, accepting their treatment, and trying to be the good daughter, it all spilled out. "Embarrassing for you? What about how embarrassing it was for me to be slapped in front of strangers? What about how humiliating it is to have my parents take her side after she hit me?" "Don't be dramatic." "No, Mama, you and Papa should have supported me. You should have said something when she slapped me. You're my parents too, remember?" There was a long pause. When Mama spoke again, her voice was cold. "Listen carefully, Bangi. Either you pay your sister what she wants, or your father and I will stop talking to you. It's your choice." Bangi laughed, but it wasn't funny. "You know what, Mama? That doesn't scare me anymore. I'm done. I'm done being treated like a punching bag. I'm done being compared to her. I'm done being made to feel less than her. If you don't want to talk to me, that's fine. I don't want to talk to any of you anymore." Bangi hung up before Mama could respond, then turned off her phone. She needed a break from all of them. When Bangi turned her phone back on an hour later, it was full of text messages from Kansim. Each one was worse than the last. "You're just jealous because you're a slim skeleton. Ugly nobody with no booty. You've always been the family embarrassment. You can't even walk properly, you clumsy bag of bones. Don't worry about coming to the wedding. You're not invited. Enjoy your sad little apartment while I live in luxury with Lubowa. You'll be alone and broke while I'm living my best life in our mansion." Reading Kansim's nasty messages, something inside Bangi snapped. She quickly typed a reply. "You mean the house that belongs to Lubowa's parents? The one you'll be living in as a guest?" There was a brief pause in Kansim's replies, the first silence in what felt like ages. Then Bangi's phone buzzed with new messages. "You think you're so clever," Kansima wrote. "Those old fools won't know what hit them. Lubowa's parents are clueless. New money without a clue how to keep it safe. Give me 6 months and I'll have them eating out of my hand. A year, and I'll get them to give me everything." Bangi stared at her phone in shock as Kansim continued. "Lubowa is even dumber than they are. He thinks I'm in love with him. Can you believe that boring, soft-hearted fool? But he's my ticket to a good life, so I'll play whatever role I need to." Kansimi ended her message with laughing emojis and then returned to her threats about the money Bangi owed her. "Don't forget 16 million shillings by the end of the week or else. And don't think I won't make your life hell if you don't pay up, you loser." Bangi sat there for a long time staring at her phone, thinking about Lubowa's mother, how kind she had been at the party, how she had tried to make Bangi feel welcome, despite Kansim's behavior. They deserved to know the truth. Before Bangi could change her mind, she opened Kansim's social media profile and found Lubowa's mother's account. She hovered over the message button for a moment before sending her message. Mrs. Ashaba, Bangi wrote, "This is Bangi, Kansim's sister from the engagement party. I feel I should introduce myself properly, especially since things got chaotic that evening." Mrs. Ashaba replied quickly, "Bangi dear, I was hoping to hear from you. I'm so sorry about what happened at the party. I spoke to Kansimi about her behavior. She feels awful about slapping you and promised to call you to apologize. Has she reached out yet?" Bangi couldn't help but laugh bitterly. "Actually, Mrs. Ashaba, that's why I'm messaging you. My sister hasn't apologized. Instead, she's been demanding 16 million shillings from me, 8 million shillings for the dress, and 8 million shillings for what she calls emotional damages." "That can't be right," Mrs. Ashaba quickly replied. "She told me she felt terrible about what happened and understood it was an accident." Bangi felt steadiness as she typed back, "I have proof of what she really said, not just about the money, but many other things. Things you and your family should know before the wedding." Bangi took screenshots of every nasty message Kansim sent, every threat, every mean comment about Lubowa and his family, and every boast about her plans to trick them. She sent them all, letting the truth speak for itself. The weekend after Bangi sent those messages was too quiet. No texts from her sister, no calls from her parents. The silence felt like something was about to happen, and Bangi was right. Early Saturday morning, someone pounded on her apartment door. Looking through the peephole, Bangi saw Kansim, her face twisted with anger. "Open this door, you backstabbing snake!" Kansim shouted loud enough for everyone to hear. "Open it right now!" Bangi stood firmly behind her locked door. "I'm not letting you in. Say what you need to say and leave." "You ruined everything!" Kansima shrieked. Lubowa called off the wedding. His mother showed him those messages. "You had no right to send them. You're a traitor." "I sent them because they needed to know the truth," Bangi calmly replied. "They should know who they're really dealing with." "You did this on purpose!" Kansimi was nearly out of breath now. "You sent those messages to his mother because you're jealous of me. You've always been jealous." "No," Bangi firmly said. "I did it because it was the right thing to do. Those people deserve to know you were planning to trick them, and that you were making fun of them and using their son." Kansim let out a stream of terrible words that would have shocked Bangi's neighbors. Then Bangi heard her storm off. Kansimi's last threat, "I'll make you pay for this," echoed down the hallway. Bangi barely caught her breath when her phone rang. Mama and Papa called right on cue. "What have you done?" Mama's voice was sharp. "Your sister is devastated. You must fix this immediately. Call Lubowa's mother and tell her you made those messages up because you were jealous of your sister's happiness." Bangi sank into her couch, feeling exhausted. "I won't do that. The messages are real, and you know it. My sister showed her true colors, and now she has to face the consequences." "You spiteful, envious girl," Mama spat. "We always knew you were jealous of your sister's success. But this is too much." "I'm done," Bangi said quietly. "I'm finished with all of this. Don't call me again." Bangi hung up and blocked their numbers. In the following days, Bangi heard from her cousin Judith that Lubowa not only called off the wedding, but also broke up with Kansim completely. His mother had shown him all the messages, including those where Kansima insulted them and bragged about her plans to take their money. Judith told Bangi that Kansim was staying with their parents, crying and telling anyone who would listen that Bangi had ruined her life out of jealousy. Their parents were backing Kansim's story, making Bangi look like the mean younger sister who couldn't stand her sister's happiness. That's when Bangi knew she had to break free. She spent her lunch break looking for apartments in a different part of Kampala. She found a nice place, a bit bigger than her current one, in a neighborhood she liked. Bangi thought she would feel sad, but instead, she felt calm. Some might call it revenge, but to her, it was justice. And as she carried the last box into her new apartment, Bangi knew she would sleep well that night and every night after, feeling proud of herself for choosing self-respect over a toxic family life. If you enjoyed this kind of story and want to hear more, please make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more thrilling content. Your support means a lot. Thank you for being part of this journey.